Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Ayenini. This morning, we briefly go to Bogosu, where there was an explosion. We try to account for what happened and look forward to the rebuilding exercise in Apiatse. 13 dead. More to be counted, 4 in critical condition, many in excess of 100 displaced, and some are on admission in the hospital. The Vice President and the Lands Minister visited the people yesterday and made a number of promises to them. A few actions have been taken: interdiction of certain persons or one person, and the suspension of the operation of the company Maxam. What will happen from here? The Speaker's security, has it been compromised? He has soldiers. They have been removed. There are conflicting reports regarding the exercise. Which of the reports do we believe? The economy has been downgraded by Fitch. What are the implications of the downgrade? And what is Bloomberg also saying? Unjustified credit rating, or this is reality check? The Minister of Finance takes us to Genesis in the Bible. And it says, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." This is Genesis 11:5-6. The minister says this ought to be Ghana's attitude as we try to overcome the financial difficulties that the economy is facing. He says the economy is stressed, but not on the wrong path. We'll interrogate that. And there is the Ministry of Education or the Education Service, and their reforms that they are bringing into the sector. A number of them, all at once. But one that has been opposed by the majority of stakeholders, or all stakeholders, is the semester education program. Well, it looks like their hand has been forced to revert to the trimester system. We will seek to understand the basis of the opposition and why it has been reversed now. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters. You're welcome back. And briefly, Newsfile and myself want to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank you all for the Prison Change Project. During my last show for 2021, I invited you to follow me to the prisons. God bless you for your kind and generous response. We had almost 40,000 CDs to get inmates of the Kumasi Central Prisons food and other essential supplies. It was heartwarming to hear it will not only be for special Christmas for them, but that it will last them several months. The officers announced to the inmates, quote, you are going to have a good Christmas because Samson and his team have brought a big truckload of goods for you. End quote. Guess what? This was the biggest such donation they received. And they say, I should thank you for your love and care for them in their difficult times. This was only a precursor to the Prisons Change project commencing this year, during which I shall be advocating for increase in the daily feeding rate of 1 cedi 80 pesos per inmate per day. I tell you, that's difficult for them. I will be also canvassing and trying to raise funds and whatever I can do to build a reliable database to identify for legal aid, especially persons on remand needing critical legal representation. Now, as I met them and spoke to some of them, I mentioned that I know that some of them have been in that prison on remand for a year or two. And then 2 of them shouted, "Sir, I've been here for 10 years on remand." Another one shouted, "I've been here for 20 years on remand." Remand means your case has not been determined. So you're innocent. You have not been found guilty. I will be working for general improvement of prison conditions and fundraising for an industrial village project by the prison service to equip prisoners so they do not become liability and security threat to society upon their release. I will tell you more about the December visit, which will be an annual event, and the Prisons Change project. A big thank you to you all. Thank you to my senior and colleague lawyers who dedicated their precious time for the free legal clinics we held for needy citizens on Love FM, Inshira FM, and the Joy Super Morning Show, as well as Ekosi Sen on Asempa FM. We can do this at least quarterly to help our people who have real legal solution needs but simply can't afford legal fees. They can't even afford consultation fees. Thank you also to those of you who have called to express interest to avail yourself for this service to God and country. I will be calling on you very soon. And the duty bearers, you'll see me in your offices so that we can brainstorm how to improve the situation. That's my take. We'll be right back. Welcome. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. It is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, seeing is believing. Waylead Properties, home is where one starts. DBS Industries, we truly are your roof experts. CBG, we stand with you. Fabrimental, your partner in steel. Duroplus, where Duroplus goes, water flows. The Bar Stowe School, start here, go everywhere. And my outfit is by Habil's Couture. They are at Adringano, Gate, East Legon, and you can call them on 0284 1988, 0284 1988. That is Habil's Couture. Now, let me go on the phones and begin the show with the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abu Jinapo. Thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Samson, for having me, and a very good morning to your cherished listeners. Thank you.
Great. We thank you because we know that it's been a difficult day for you yesterday. You, together with the Vice President, the Inspector General of Police, and a team were on the field looking at what was going on and assessing the needs of the people and We understand that you worked all day into the night. So thank you very much for making time to join us. Briefly, what would you say about what you saw on the grounds and what should we look forward to?
Well, what we saw on the ground, catastrophic, very devastating. Community literally wiped off completely. The Vice President led a government delegation comprising myself, the Minister for Interior, the Minister for Information, and as you rightly pointed out, heads of security agencies. Went there to ascertain for himself what had taken place, commensurate with the victims, and then the condolences of government to the deceased family, and give a firm, strong assurance that government will do all in its power to ensure that we bring the situation to normalcy and support the community in rebuilding their community. So that's what happened yesterday. As you know, we've since been back. What are the next steps? The investigation has to go on and be done thoroughly and comprehensively with integrity. When we get the initial reports from the initial preliminary investigation, I believe the next course of action will be determined.
Right. Meanwhile, in the meantime, you have course to be interdicted. The chief inspector, who is in charge, according to the statement you issued, of inspecting and making sure that things are done rightly, and then also the company that was doing this carriage, the Maxam company, has also been suspended. Is that not too early?
Well, first of all, you have to take a look at the law clearly. LI 2177. And again, something you have to also take a look at the history, and by that I mean even pre-independence history of who the Chief Inspector of Mines is. And if you go to Regulation 2 of LI 2177, the regulation says that the Chief Inspector of Mines is responsible, is the Chief Inspector actually, that's the language of the law. The Chief Inspector of Mines is the Chief Inspector of Explosives and is responsible for the supervision of the manufacture, storage, transportation, and use of explosives for mining and mine support service. So in a matter like this, the centrality of the Chief Inspector of Mines, pursuant to the regulation, cannot be ignored. But let me very quickly point out that this directive of mine by no means suggests that the Chief Inspector of Mines is guilty of any wrongdoing or is culpable or derelict or any of that. That's not the conclusion that should be drawn from this instruction that has been given. But I think it's just proper for the integrity of the investigation and for the internal investigations of the Minerals Commission and the several other investigations which are ongoing. The Chief Inspector of Mines steps aside in order for these investigations to be one which will be credible in my view. Because if you look at the nature of the law, the man who is, if you want, directly responsible for the manufacture, in the language of the law, manufacture, storage, transportation, and use of explosives. If it's opposed, I don't know how credible the investigations will be. So it's just the right thing to do. And then you have this company which is also at the center of this situation. You don't preclude the company from continuing with its business of manufacturing and transporting of explosives. We have not had the opportunity to interrogate their protocols yet and to conclude the investigation. Touch wood, God forbid, if tomorrow we wake up and we are told that a transportation of explosives by this same company in another part of our country has resulted in a similar tragic event, what will that tell of the managers of our country? I think that will tell a very bad story of us, and it will mark of bad judgment. And so I think that in the interim, while the investigations are ongoing, I think it's also proper that this company is precluded from continuing with the business, which has resulted in this tragic occurrence. So these are the two fundamental reasons which precipitated this action.
Right.
Of course, eventually, the larger inquiry will have to happen. And when I say the larger inquiry, I mean the general use of explosives in our country, particularly the use of explosives for mining, and that will be my responsibility. That has been examined. For example, the question whether or not explosives should not be manufactured at the mine site, and what distances should we have in terms of the transportation of explosives? Should we have the manufacturers situated close range or just within the vicinity of the mining operation? We will examine all of those. But these are the two initial steps that we think is important that we take.
Right. I'm coming to the point to know, because the rescue efforts, most important for now, where you have kept your the center of your attention, and the rehabilitation or relocation efforts. That is very central for now because people are devastated. 13 people dead, 4 in critical condition who were initially misreported to be dead, and so the number was said to be 17. The many others who are still in hospital, and those who are displaced, who are trying to taking shelter, more particularly at we heard is this St. Michael Catholic Church place. But before that, if Maxam is suspended, how about Chirano? Because as we understand, they were the recipients. They were the eventual recipients of the explosives that were being transported.
Yes, Samson, you're right. The matters to do with the relief efforts, which is being led by NADMO, the police, the fire service, and other state agencies, extremely important. And yesterday, the Vice President did a nice way when he said that all efforts should be made to bring some comfort and relief to the victims. So that's very important. What about Chirano? What I can say about that is that these are the two steps that I believe, working in close collaboration with other organs of the government, that are necessary for now. As you rightly pointed out, it's early days here. I don't think that matter will end here. I believe it will go on and on and on. And as a lawyer, you can even imagine that there are all kinds of possible or potential implications. Some of them may be civil and so on and so forth. We don't have to preempt anything now. On Monday, we're scheduled to begin a series of engagements from early, the very morning, including a meeting with officials of Chirano and so on and so forth. And I believe that in due course, we will be able to come to a well-reasoned conclusion as to what are the next steps that we should take. Yeah.
Do you have an idea as to timelines for the investigations yet?
I think the initial or preliminary investigation shouldn't take too long. That's the sense I'm getting. But
in the morning, you suggested that this would be a matter of days and not weeks.
It should be. But I wouldn't give a firm indication of timing because these are professionals doing their work. You don't want to stampede them. But I know that they are getting on with their job in earnest. I do know that, but I can't give specific timeline.
Right, and when this is done, we are certain that the public will have access to the report. It will be made public.
Well, let's wait for the report to be concluded. And I believe that the consequential steps or the consequential actions will then follow suit.
All right. So talk about the Vice President was talking about things that government intends to extend to them, including rebuilding of their community. What exactly are these plans? You don't think this community should be abandoned completely and then another place found for them? I don't know. I don't have an idea. Just asking. What are the things involved in this rebuilding exercise?
Yes, the Vice President said so, and it's very much in the right direction. He talks about collaborating between my ministry and the Minerals Commission as well, and then as well as the 3,000 companies to see how we will rebuild this community. The issue of whether or not to build the community where it is today or to move it to a different location. I think we will have to let the housing experts advise us and the safety experts advise us. But for myself personally, I don't see how they should. I wouldn't understand why they should be moved. I'm not too sure that the accident was necessarily because of the location of the community. It could have happened to any community at all. But I believe that kind of decision will have to be made in consultation with the experts as well as the community members themselves.
Right. So, as I indicated earlier, we understand you must be very fatigued. So we can leave it here. But if you have anything else to share with the public, you can say that briefly, and then we'll move on, sir.
Well, what I would say is that the methods which have come out of this incident are far-reaching, and one of the assurance I want to give is that the broader interrogation, which is inevitable, which is inescapable, will be done, which is the general, when these matters happen everywhere in the world, what you do also is that, apart from dealing with a specific issue, you also look at the institutional framework and look at the regulatory framework in place, and then put in place measures which will forestall it in years to come. And as I pointed out, one of the suggestions which has been made to me, which sounds very attractive, is where these explosives are manufactured. First of all, are they imported? And if they are imported, should they be imported? Second of all, can they be manufactured in Ghana? Thirdly, where should they be manufactured? And so on and so forth. But that is a future larger conversation we will have. For the time being, what is important is to get on top of this particular situation. And God willing, we intend to do exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, is the one we just spoke to. He, together with the Vice President and other security officers, the IGP and some officers from the Army, were at Apiati in the Bogosu area yesterday to see for themselves at first hand the destruction that had happened as a result of the explosion that occurred there. Now, as we understand, he issued a statement soon after they returned from the inspection of the place, and his statement said that the Chief Inspector of Mines, who is a Chief Inspector of Explosives and is responsible for the supervision of the manufacture, storage, transportation, and use of explosives for mining and mine support services, had to be interdicted by the CEO of the Minerals Commission. So he gave that directive to the CEO of the Minerals Commission to interdict the Chief Inspector of Mines with immediate effect pending the outcome of the ongoing investigations into the events there. He also directed the CEO of the Minerals Commission with immediate effect to suspend the registration of Maxam Company Limited with the Minerals Commission, thereby precluding the company from the manufacture, transportation, and or supply of explosives for mining operations pending the outcome of the investigations into the matter, and gave the assurance, which he has repeated a while ago, that all public officials or anyone found culpable will be made to face the full rigors of the law. Let me get to speak to my other guests who are coming on this discussion. Dr. Tony Obing, if you are with us, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning, Samson, and good morning to your viewers.
Right. So as someone who has previously had the opportunity You spent quite considerable time within this area and also became the chief executive of the Minerals Commission. First off, how do you assess what has happened and what ought to be the path to resolving the issues as a result of this?
Okay, well, thank you very much. I come from the area where this fatality occurred. I am about 30 minutes away, and so I'm feeling it directly and personally for what happened. So it was horrible, terrible, and very, very sad. Now, I think the whole issue of the management of explosives, including the transportation of explosives, is well guided by LI 2177, and it's quite detailed enough for one to be guided by it. So I think we should look at what the LI requires and what happened in reality on that fateful day. I mean, the issue is, how do you transport explosives? And there are clear requirements. In fact, one thing that I know about the mining industry is some of the big ones, they are penchant for strict application of safety measures. So what happened? What was the issue? What happened?
Accidents happen. So accidents happened.
Yeah. So if it was an accident that did not come out of negligence, then that's another one. I mean, if it's a normal accident that was out of any control, then that is acceptable.
Yeah, so from what you have heard so far, what do you say? Do you find immediately that there's some cause to look at the question of negligence?
Yeah, we need to understand whether there was an escort with all the requirement of an escort vehicle, one in front and one behind. I don't know. I don't also know the state of mind of the driver, because there's a requirement for the driver to be competent and certified and licensed, to be able to do that. So all these questions may come up. But I think the step that has been taken so far...
I think we can exhaust that briefly. I think one thing is curious. So far in the conversations, we hear about the driver and the good thing he did in going to the community and, cautioning and asking them to move to safety because, he had explosives and, they could get in flames and the danger will be caused and many will be harmed. Unfortunately, they didn't listen to him. We understand that he spoke to a school nearby. They appear to have listened and moved to safety. But we don't hear anything about a dispatch rider. At least I have not yet. How about you? Have you heard anything about a dispatch?
Well, I saw the police interview by the police commissioner. That seemed to suggest that there was a police escort. But so the requirement is not just one escort in front and maybe not a motorbike. It must be an escort vehicle with a flag on it, a red flag on it, indicating that the vehicle following me is carrying an explosive material.
The law doesn't give that detail. The law simply speaks about, a motor, escort, so to speak.
Yeah, but there's an industry requirement. An escort could not just be any vehicle just driving in front of another vehicle. So I think there's an industry requirement, and everybody knows it. And when they're escorting, sometimes even these giant vehicles, the excavators, bigger excavators, and other haulage vehicles that have been escorted, you see maybe a pickup with a flag, and sometimes light being flicked out so that you would see that there's something coming which is dangerous. I don't know. I cannot say they did that or they didn't do that. But so far, all I have heard is that the police had an escort. I don't know if they had an escort in front and the guard at the back. That one, I don't know. But it might be like because this thing has been happening and we haven't experienced any fatality, any major accident, I'm sure we've taken that for granted. I mean, we do that often in our country where nothing has happened. We assume that it will never happen. So I think
you're saying this is not the first of such incidents.
I'm saying that in our country, I don't think we have experienced. I cannot recall any battery incident in a level of fatality that we have seen. And even if it's one, it is one too many. Especially given what we have seen, it shouldn't have happened. But as you said, accidents do happen, and sometimes when real accidents happen, they are out of control of people who are managing it. So that we can grant that. But I think the step that has been initiated by Honorable Abu Jenapo and his team is quite right. In fact, I spoke on your network on the date of the incident, and I called for an immediate investigation into the matter, just to establish what caused the reality of what caused the incident, the accident, and then also if there are some corrections that need to be made, then we make them, and if there are some people who need to be brought to book.
Right. So admittedly, like the minister has been cautioning and himself has been cautious throughout, we all have to wait for the investigations, right?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
You will say that the first steps in interdicting the Chief Inspector of Mines and suspending Maxam is in the right direction?
Yes, I mean, I think the minister was quite on point when he said that this is not a statement that the Chief Inspector of Mines has done any wrong. I think it is, if it is for the integrity of the investigation, it is right that you set him aside so that you have the freedom to gather materials and to answer questions in a round. But I agree with him that it is not a statement that the Chief Inspector of Mines has done any wrong. Unfortunately, if you are clothed by law that you are as the one who supervises the manufacture of of explosive and the transportation and all that, then whatever happens, it comes around your neck, unfortunately. So we need to wait for the investigations, and the investigations must be thorough, and at the end of the day, it must be transparent as well.
So the same thing may apply to, if you are saying Maxam is suspended, and for now, they haven't done anything wrong because you don't have the evidence. The Chief Inspector of Mines, you don't have any evidence that he's done anything wrong, but it is just something you want to do and feel is in the right step pending investigations. How about the Shirano company, mining company itself? That was supposed to be the intended recipient.
Yes, but it's like you trying to import something, and then there's an accident, and you say that the importer must be punished or must be in a way suspended because he wanted to import it or he imported it.
But this is not exactly a good example to give if it has to do with the transportation of explosives. Yes, it's not an ordinary case of seeking to import something and then the importer being punished even when they have not received the goods yet.
No, Samson, this is a material used in mining. So you will need that material. There is a company which is independent which does the manufacturing and transportation to the site. So obviously, I don't know what arrangement they have, whether the responsibility ends at the doorstep of Chirano or once you start moving the goods from a particular location, the responsibility shifts to Chirano. If that is not so, then at this stage, Chirano may be asked to do something to support community the fatality that has occurred and be sort of.
Well, there are those who are suggesting already that the mining entities involved should take the bigger, responsibility in rehabilitating the community. So if there are fines and so on to be slapped on, they should take the heftier, fines.
If I were Chirano, I wouldn't even wait for a fine to be hefty or less. I would actually boldly come to the support of the community, knowing very well that you are the entity that was requesting material to be transported. So on moral ground, purely even on moral ground and on corporate social responsibility ground, if I were to run and if I were to advise them, I'll ask them to actually show responsibility immediately and take it from there. Okay. And obviously, the investigation will not leave them. I'm sure they will ask them a couple of questions. So I think we should wait for that.
All right. Because of the public nature of this thing, I asked the minister if the results or the report of the investigations will be made public. He tells me we should wait until it is done. Should we not know beforehand that this report will be a public document?
Well, I mean, that's interesting. I think it should be, transparency is extremely important, unless there's something proprietary about what they're going to find. Otherwise, I think if it is transparent, people can live with them. Why do they do truth and reconciliation commissions when people have to tell things that are horrible? But at the end of the day, will settle their heart. So I would ask for a much transparent investigation. But the minister was not categorical on that. He said that, well, let's wait and see. So maybe upon reflection and upon consultation, he will come to the conclusion that maybe we are better off having an open, transparent.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Tony Obing, founder and president, African Institute of Extractive Industries, and he's a former CEO of the Minerals Commission. Joining us briefly is Theophilus Jimaga, who is a mining engineer. Theophilus, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Samson.
Right.
How are you doing?
Right. So briefly, from an engineer's perspective, because you have quite a lot of expertise in this area, what would you want us to be looking at?
Samson, good morning to your cherished listeners and viewers. Just a quick one here, really. I believe that accidents don't happen, as you said. Accidents are actually caused. So we need to look at the cause of the accident. Equally, I also feel that I'm of the opinion that we have not done enough education and sensitization across country about explosives, their transportation hazards to the communities. Can you imagine if this had happened in Takwa, or it had happened in Bogosu itself? The fatalities would have been more than what we have at the moment. Now, I also feel that the action of the minister is a bit of a quick and knee-jerk reaction. We have been told that there was a collision with a light vehicle. Why is the CEO of DVLA not asked to step aside, or the Minister of Roads and Transport not involved? Now, Maxam has also been suspended. Those that depend on Maxam cannot just walk into another manufacturer and say, I need explosives. So there will be impact on production, impact on workforce, and there will be impact on revenue. So we need to look at it critically and patiently. Secondly, Dr. Obin, my friend, was saying that there had to be an escort. Yes, I look at the LIC is just an escort, as you indicated. But in this particular instance, we have been told by people who were around that there was not an escort vehicle. There was just the policeman in the same compartment as the driver. So that also is an area we need to look at. Then we have also been told that the driver tried to use the fire extinguisher and was not successful. But the LI was clear, the regulation was clear that the fire extinguishers must be two and they must be readily available to be used. So in this instance, the fire extinguisher was not readily available to be used. So something went wrong somewhere. Then also the minister was asking whether the manufacturing will take place on site or off site. We also need to know if they are transporting AMFO, which we have been told, which is ammonium nitrate fuel oil, that is an explosive component that can explode. So we need to look at these things as from the engineering point and look at it as far as the LI is concerned, identify the causes.
So that there was no escort is a matter that was confirmed by the NADMO officer for the area. His name is it Louis Afo. He confirmed, he's the deputy NADMO director for Prestia Huni Valley. He said that he knows for a fact, and he has witnesses to that effect, that there was no escort. An escort could have prevented the accident. Is that the point?
Yes, as Dr. Tony Obin said, if we had an escort vehicle with a flashing beacon and a policeman in that escort vehicle, of course, currently as the law stands, there's no escort distance. There's no distance between the escort vehicle and the vehicle carrying the explosives. But industry-wide, you would have thought that they will have their own procedures and policies that they have been using. So it would be expected that the escort vehicle would have served as an alert system for people who are also using the road, that the next vehicle following the escort truck is carrying explosives. That could have prevented the accident. And again, as I said, we need to do education and sensitization. This was just something waiting to happen, and it could happen again. And as I indicated, assuming it had happened in a bigger community like Bogosu or Takwa, it would have been more catastrophic than what we have witnessed.
But you mentioned earlier why the DVLA, boss should not be taking responsibility. I didn't get that point. What do you mean?
No, what I was trying to say is that we have been told that the truck collided with a light vehicle, what we call Abuboya or Motokia. So if we are just saying that the explosive truck, for which the Chief Inspector of Mines has responsibility over its transport, is being interdicted, what of the other truck that collided with it? So I think that I'm just making the point that it's a knee-jerk reaction. We shouldn't have interdicted the Chief Inspector of Mines at this stage. From independence, as Dr. Tony Obin said, the Chief Inspector of Mines position has survived all political positions.
You are looking.
It is an office.
You are looking of giving a semblance of independence in the process of investigation. That should be the reason. That should be the reason people like him should be suspended or interdicted. Is that not so? Are you not asking too much?
No, Samson, we are yet to even have any preliminary report. Nothing has been done preliminary. So it will mean that we are jumping too quick.
The visiting team gave us a preliminary report of what happened.
Samson, the preliminary team was not, or do not include the professionals from Minerals Commission. Those from Western region are currently undertaking their task. Perhaps by Monday, they might come up with a report. And after that, a committee can be formed, a commission to investigate, and the Chief Inspector of Mines will be set aside. The interdiction of the Chief Inspector of Mines, had there been a industry-wide consultation, even the Chamber of Mines, had they been consulted or something, there will be implications. Somebody will have to step up to the Chief Inspector of Mines position.
Okay. All right. But you are looking forward to the investigations, right?
Very well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for joining us. And that was Theophilos Dimaga, who is a mining engineer, speaking to us, sharing his views on the development. Well, according to the law, and that's the mining regulations, Regulation 107 of the Minerals and Mining Explosives Regulations 2012, LI 2177, it states that a person who transports explosives in a road vehicle shall ensure the explosives are under the direct control of a person who has a certificate of competency in explosives. I'm sure that the investigations will establish whether this person had that competency, and that that person who transports a road vehicle shall ensure that the transportation is done under a police escort. it's obvious that the issue that may come up is whether or not the escort should be sitting right in that same vehicle, or escort means that there should be an advance, escort or someone to behind them. Because according to the law, the vehicle is not even supposed to stop when it is moving. It's not supposed to be stopped unless for lawful reasons they are stopped. They are not supposed to be stopped at all. And to avoid accidents, they are supposed to comply with a number of things. We'll find out through the investigations whether the law was complied with and who will take liability for what, and how the community will be rehabilitated. We will take a quick break and return to continue with the discussion here on Newsfile. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Right, so I've got some of your messages that you have sent on the first issue that we discussed, but I'll be sharing them with the rest of the world very soon. I need to state once again that there's an initial report that many of us have seen, so any suggestion that there is no preliminary reports can't be correct. Now, I'm joined in the studio by Mr. Seth Tekpe, is former Minister of Finance, and joining us via Zoom is John Kuma. Dr. John Kuma is Deputy Minister of Finance. Thank you for joining us, John. Hello, John.
Yeah, thank you, Samson.
Great. And good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning.
Right.
Good morning to your viewers.
Right. Okay. So let's begin. Some of us, we don't have an appreciation of all of these credit ratings and what they really mean for the economy. And the Ministry of Finance has been very unhappy about what Bloomberg, reported, and also what Fitch has done as to the ratings. So give us, some brief, simple understanding. What are we in for because of these ratings?
Yeah, thank you very much. The question is, what is the essence of the ratings?
Mm-hmm.
And to simplify, let me limit to two. There are about three which definitely affects us. The first one is the sovereign, that is Ghana itself. And the ratings for Fitch is A, B, and then it goes down. Like your scorecard, school scorecard or something, yeah. Mm. So, and then within the B, they have B positive, B negative. It's like getting B minus in your class, or it has a different connotation than B, just straight B, and so the lower you come, it means the less credible, if I may use it, you are in going to the financial markets. I'll come and explain that. To borrow. Okay. Now, so apart from the sovereign being rated, when we go to do a sovereign bond or borrow through the bond mechanism, which many people know as a sovereign bond, you go to New York Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange. The our stock exchange is small, but we do some of the trading also on the Ghana Stock Exchange. We started that, I believe, in 2014 or so. The bond itself is rated, and it's linked to the country's rating. So what does the rating mean? The rating means you have borrowed in the past. Are you capable of paying that loan you borrowed? Then it comes to, if you are having difficulty paying the interest and principal on the loan that you borrowed, the question arises, how confident are we that when you borrow this time, it will not worsen the situation. You'll be able to pay. Right, so these are the questions. Now,
on about 5 occasions, this country has been rated by Fitch with a B.
Yeah, we've always been B.
Right.
Yes.
So this is the first time since 2003, as we understand, that this country has been rated B-.
No, we have had B- before, but it's either B plus B- positive, which means that even though you are low, there is optimism, based on measures that you have taken, that you would get out of your current situation. So to give you a typical example, when we started putting money into the sinking fund, because of the pressure of single spine and other, issues that was confronting us, doomsaw and others, the ratings dropped. There is this typical of social media, you see the chart showing the precedents and, So it did drop, but then we started putting money because what the markets were concerned with is we were coming to borrow at the time. I'm giving a specific example. And they are seeing that by 2017, the bond that was issued under former President Kufuor would mature in 2017. So if it matures in 2017 and you are in the market 2014, 2015 with 2 or 3 years to go, and you are going to add to that debt and you have not been paying principal, right? What is the assurance that when we give you the money, you'll be able to pay, add, let's say, another billion to 750 billion, 1.7 billion? You don't have a mechanism for paying down. So are you able to refinance? Are you able to convince the market that, yes, I don't have 750, but you permit me to reschedule it? Okay. We realized that wasn't going to work. This is the rationale for the sinking fund. So immediately we established a sinking fund, and they realized, that we had actually gone to the market, the secondary market, and bought down our bonds up to about 330 million, with 200 to go, and we had refinanced 250 already. They realized that we had a plan. So immediately, it didn't go down further to negative, but it started to stabilize around positive.
So the Bloomberg report said that, the country was facing a grave financial challenge.
Yeah.
Because investors were becoming impatient. It said, among other things, that our dollar bonds have slumped 10% in 10 days, moving deeper into distress territory.
Yes.
As investors judge that refinancing debts in the Eurobond market won't be an option when the Federal Reserve hikes rates and budget targets remain elusive. They spoke about they said the extra premium demanded on Ghana's sovereign dollar debt jumped on Wednesday to an average of 1,105 basis points from 683 basis points in September. What do all of this mean?
Well, Bloomberg, Moody's will come. Standard & Poor's will come. These are the three globally who are known and who use these global factors. For example, because inflation is high in the US and it's increasing in Europe, the central bank, just our central bank, normally they talk about inflation a lot, and then they base that on the rate which Bank of Ghana, the base rate which Bank of Ghana charges banks. It either raises it to lower inflation, or lowers it when inflation is going down. That is what's at play. But we are in those international markets to borrow. So Bloomberg is warning us that apart from the difficulty you have now, we know by now that we are using all our tax revenue basically to pay compensation and the interest on previous loans. What this means is that even the loan we borrowed previously, we are borrowing to refinance. So Bloomberg is saying if you are coming from this situation and then you are coming to the market to refinance, some of the old loans, right, then you are having difficulty because remember, we did not go to the market for the extra 2 billion. Last year. Okay. We were supposed to borrow 5 billion. Because our situation was deteriorating, and it's time for correction, but that's the way the markets interpret it. They think that because you are having difficulty borrowing, a good example is the zero coupon bond that we did. It was described as innovative and the rest, but the cost was expensive. For 500 million, which we were to receive, we received only 350 million approximately upfront, which means that we gave away 150 million. If you do a simple average, it means the interest Ghana was paying was about between 30 to 40%, depending on whether you are expressing it on the 350 or on the 550. So they are looking at this situation in which our budget is very tight, very, very tight. We are borrowing to service current loans, and therefore they are saying, is this bond? Bond is your loan is broken into pieces and then it's sold. And the price is the interest rate that you pay. So people holding, when they say people holding it, either would demand a higher price, right, when you come to the market, because it's risky, it's become risky. Or they will just shed it. And once they shed it, it means that everybody says there's a problem with this bond. And that is the days that they were, within a matter of week, we had all these slippages, that we had.
The finance minister met the press, and among other things, he said that the budget, the 2022 budget that he has presented, enables us to stabilize the economy and address the greatest challenges of our time. And that is the triple helix of debts, digital and fiscal infrastructure deficit, especially roads, and unemployment. Then he proceeds to give us an understanding of the fact that the current expenditure pattern, he says, is motivated by government's unwavering commitment to the sovereign rights of the people of Ghana to social justice and social mobility. Between 2017 and 2021, key expenditures have been education, approximately 50 billion Ghana cedis, health, approximately 20 billion Ghana cedis, security, approximately 20 billion, excluding national security, other flagships or programs, he says about 15 billion Ghana cedis. And of course, there is the Agenda 111 hospitals. If you look at all of this, he says they are still doing everything to keep, the ship stable. Would you agree with those who say the economy is heading to collapse? Like Professor Bokwin, who, was very straightforward in that kind of...
Not if we do not take remedial measures. Not if we do not take remedial measures. We are gradually going, and we have gone HIPIC before, right? So HIPIC is a good example for us, that if your borrowing becomes unsustainable. You see, the key word there is sovereign right, which we are also exercising in not going to the IMF, right? And we can discuss that later. Yes, you have your sovereign right, okay, but you are not able to finance your budget. So what is that sovereign right? And remember, it's your sovereign, as I explained, which is being rated. And you are in the markets. And the markets are losing confidence in the words that you are telling them. And they are saying, the IMF says, you are saying your loan is 77 or 79 or whatever. The IMF is saying it's 83 or 81 or 82. Fitch is saying it's 83. And that is because they are rejecting your method of excluding bailout costs and those things in calculating that, because all those are pressures for your borrowing. Now, yes, you have your sovereign right to do education. You have your sovereign right, to do all your government programs. But are you able to finance it yourself? And they are looking at your budget, which something I have here. By the time you are finished, your total revenue, even as projected, at 100 billion, which is supposed to increase by about 20 billion, which is significant, right? But we'll put that aside. By the time you have paid compensation, 64, and you have paid interest, you start borrowing. That's the red you see here. So, and much of what you are talking about, your sovereign right to do education, is in goods and services. right? Much of education is in goods and services. Education infrastructure, the roads you want to build and the arrears, they are in capital expenditure. And then you have arrears. And then you have exceptional expenditures, banking sector, because you have included the revenue here, includes ESLA and the rest, which was meant to pay for those things. So all the things I have mentioned now, apart from the two, you are borrowing. Is your market able to give you the money you need? Your market is small, right? To the extent that even when you issue a domestic bond, right? When you issue a domestic bond, which we started vigorously under my former boss, Dr. Dufo, right? Much of it is patronized or is bought by the same people who are buying our sovereign bond. So when they see that your economy is strong, you are able to finance, they come and buy. At the moment, they are not coming. That's what we mean when we talk about the expression non-residents exiting our markets. So they started exiting. And it's in the budget. Government itself has stated. Right? So what is your sovereign right what is the point in asserting your sovereign right when you are not capable of borrowing and you are going to the same people you are saying, I have a sovereign right to come to you and borrow? Why weren't you able to borrow last year? You know, the additional 2 billion. Right? And why haven't you? And in fact, if you look at the budget, the finances section, you will see that the rate at which we were borrowing has been, government itself has lowered it. It's lower. So government is anticipating that it will have difficulty going to the external markets. So it is dependent. Now, when you come to the domestic market, Fitch is saying, wait a minute. Okay, how big is your domestic market? Right? Fine. Even if you are able to finance, it means that your private sector will be, what's the expression, crowded out. Because you are turning from the external market and coming to the domestic market. So it means you are not competing with your own firms, you know, for credit on the domestic market. Your interest rate itself will go up domestically. And you have difficulty, as we had, and you have situations like Bank of Ghana coming in to give you 1.7 billion, more than even we got from the IMF. Yes, you can attribute it to COVID, but I always insist that the 2019 Article 4, right, 2019 Article 4, showed that we had a gap before COVID, right? My next point is, look, the market is not convinced about the methodologies that we are using. Offsets, as I said, bailout costs being put, you know, in the bottom and the rest. But you see, they also have the right. You have your sovereign right, but they also have the right to say, we're also looking at your budget. And this is the way we are rating you. You know, you see the point. And the markets, sorry, I'll just land. The markets are now looking more, those who are giving you the money, they are looking more at what Bloomberg is saying, what Fitch is saying, what Reuters is saying, you know, and what IMF, World Bank, African Development Bank, who are all warning us that our debt is also sustainable.
Well, the Bloomberg report said that, quote, investors are questioning whether Ghana, the region's second biggest economy, can sustain its debt levels if a surge in borrowing cost shut it out of the international market. But the finance minister, in addressing us, takes us through a number of things they have had to do because of COVID. And of course, COVID has hit everybody. And he says that they have done a number of things to mitigate the impact of the COVID pandemic. Government, among others, did one, recruited additional 24,285 health professionals. It provided 3.6 million reusable face masks, 50,000 medical scrubs, 90,000 hospital gowns and head covers to health facilities as of June 2020. It rolled out the 750 million CAP bus program in May 2020 to directly support micro, small and medium-sized enterprises to 302 SMMEs and to save 768,184 jobs. It provided cook meals to 2 million, almost 3 million vulnerable persons, and worked with faith-based organizations to distribute dry food packages to over 470,000 families. It supported households with electricity and customers in excess of, 477 to 512 customers, and water to about 10.2 million urban dwellers alone. Then lastly, it said it spent 1.9 billion to ensure that our children and teaching staff at all levels return to school safely and save the year, as they were able to sit for their BECA and WASI exams with historic results. Now, will you blame government for borrowing when it gives you these statistics?
Samson, the question facing us is a simple one. It is a financing issue. All these things that we have listed here, who financed it? How did we finance it? IMF, 1 billion, COVID loan. This year, COVID is continuing. SDR, 1 billion, same IMF, right? And we say we don't want to go to the IMF.
What's SDR?
The special drawing rights. Remember the 1 billion, which is our sovereign, appreciation of our position, the money we had at the IMF, which the IMF distributed to countries to cater for COVID and all that we are talking about, right? It's IMF, yes, that one is our money. But we included it in financing, right? If we get 1 billion, why are we not putting it in a major project, right? Our own money. Why are we not doing a major project which we can say we got this money, we are capable of financing COVID costs? Well, as I said, Bank of Ghana gave 1.7 billion US dollars, right? So counting 3.7 billion. World Bank gave us, 600 together with the African Development Bank and the rest, close to another billion. Development partners came to our aid, vaccines and other things, right? This is the only crisis where we have had close to 5 billion US dollars to tackle. And we still have a situation where we are having difficulty borrowing. What is the problem? Right. So the market is saying, it's simple. Yes, you did all this. It's good for your people. It's good for, But how did you finance it? You financed it through loans, which worsened your position on the market. And you are coming to borrow again. And we all know that you don't have money to even pay the past one. That's the budget. And I'm looking at the budget.
Okay, now let me go to Dr. John Kuma. And John, the minister says that restoring fiscal discipline and putting the public debt on a sustainable downward trajectory is a priority for government to achieve fiscal consolidation. How are you doing this in the face of this reality check that you have overborrowed, you are getting investors concerned, and all of this is going to worry? And I understand you are not too, as it were, excited that we'll be talking the way we do, because it adds to the investor confidence in the economy.
Yes, Samson. Good morning to your listeners and viewers, and good morning to my senior, the Honorable Seth Pepe.
Good morning.
Yes, senior. To address the issues that the investor community have raised, I think the Honorable Ken Ofuriatta laid out clearly Ghana's position on some of the concerns that have been raised. And we sincerely believe that the concerns are being exaggerated, and that Ghana, in this particular instance, is being unfairly downgraded or targeted especially if the basis of the downgrade or the concerns being raised is about, but as you read out to us. First of all, let us understand that this economy recovering from COVID in the last year has grown on the average of 5.2%. If you check the first quarter growth from 2021 was 3.3%, then we did 3.9%. In the third quarter, Ghana grew by 6.6%. So if you take the average of the 3 quarters, we don't have the fourth quarter yet. And we all know that fourth quarter, because of Christmas activities, tend to be the highest. But we did 6.6% in the third quarter. So with the 3 quarters in 2021, we are talking about an average of 5.2%. But the growth rate target for 2021 was 5%. So if you are doing 5.2%, it means you are doing well. Our budget deficit for last year, 2021, was 9.4%, which I think we did 9.5%, just slightly above it, and several other things. If you look at our revenue targets, GRA was given a target of 57 billion. They ended up collecting about 57.3 billion. So an economy that is growing about 5%, meeting its revenue targets and achieving even high, if you look at our bank reserves, which is about 4%, 4 months of import, above 4 months of import. I mean, at a point in 2021, we're doing even more than 5 months of import, and we are still above 4 months of import. So we don't see the basis for such an exaggerated concern, except to say that maybe it's because of the E-levy on pass in Parliament, and because of the nature of parliamentary strength, which is equal among two major parties. And so they are not sure about how our revenue targets, how the revenue targets are going to go in 2022. Otherwise, we don't see the very basis for the fears, which I think that is much exaggerated. Going forward, in 2022, the finance minister also pointed out that fiscal consolidation and trying to reduce our debt, which is of concern to them, we have indicated that we are going to do about 7.4% of deficit, which means we are slowing down our borrowing and checking out our expenditure as well. And then also we are seeking to do a lot of infrastructure and at the same time create jobs through the U-Start program. But when Honorable Setepe was talking, he talked about the number of borrowing interventions that came in 2020. Talked about the BOG asset purchase financing support that came. He talked about the World Bank and our development partners. But that was a year where we had a shortfall of 11.6 billion in our revenues. We lost about 11.6 billion in our revenue target. And then we had an unbudgeted, unplanned expenditure, extra expenditure of about 13.6 billion. So when you put the two together, you are talking about 25.5 billion gap in our budget in one particular year due to COVID. So how was government going to address this problem? This is how all the interventions that came helped Ghana to address it. The World Bank loans, the IMF support, the Bank of Ghana support we took. It was all geared towards addressing the unexpected, the lawyers, you say a force majeure situation of COVID that hit our economy. So it wasn't something like a wasteful expenditure or lack of good governance that resulted in that. And we can all understand that, yes, our debt has gone up because of the COVID. And not just Ghana. I mean, look at the COVID and its impact globally. There is no single country in this world today.
Yeah, but the question Mr. Tepe is asking is that who is financing these COVID interventions? He mentions the World Bank giving us, is it 100 million?
No, World Bank gave us about 600 million. African Development Bank gave us some money. IMF gave us, the loan. And I didn't mention our own stabilization fund, which with 3 oil fields, we never increased.
Yeah, what do you say to that? So we are not directly responsible for financing this.
Yes, but in that difficult situation, everybody was looking elsewhere for support. It's not only Ghana. The IMF and the World Bank intervened in several countries to support them. And like I told you, if you're able to raise revenues, that is when you are able to spend. Unfortunately, we had a shortfall of about 11.6 billion revenue shortfall, and we needed to spend extra 13 billion on budgeted expenditure in that same year. So yes, it is true that the World Bank, other development partners came on board to support Ghana in the financing regime, and several other local financing sources that we used, including the Bank of Ghana and even the contingency fund. And you remember, even the Fiscal Responsibility Act had to be suspended until 2025, if you remember, so that Ghana could go beyond the limit of 5% fiscal deficit as required by law. So this was an exceptional situation. And we are saying that for Ghana to be judged or to be assessed based on COVID year and the difficulties it brought on our economy, and in spite of all that we have achieved subsequently to that, because in 2021, all the target we set, we were able to grow. Even when we set a target of growth of 5% and said we will raise 57 billion in 2021, the same market doubted us, but we achieved it. And we even gone beyond the targets that we set for ourselves as a country. Today, we are talking about 2022, where we have set another target to do more. And yet they are saying it's overambitious, we cannot achieve it, and raising all kinds of doubts. But we believe in our capacity to deliver in this country. Yes, there are issues about E-levy because at the moment, even though the Parliamentary Finance Committee has approved and recommended for approval, because Parliament of the whole has not approved, it looks like a delayed revenue measure. And so it may have impact on the collections and the volumes we have stated in the budget. But government has immediately reacted and announced that we are going to have about 20% cut in expenditure in the first quarter, so that we don't want to exceed our deficit target. We don't want to spend what we do not have. And so even though we are seeking to do 20% cut in our expenditure, it is still going to be earmarked to the performance of the revenue, so that if we are still able to achieve our revenue target, then we will spend. If we are not able to achieve our revenue target, we are going to cut our expenditures by 20%. So we have demonstrated commitment.
Fitch said that, in their view, Ghana's ability to deliver on planned fiscal consolidation efforts could be hindered by the heavier reliance on domestic debt issuance with higher interest costs in the context of an already exceptionally high interest expenditure to revenue ratio.
Samson, that's where we disagree with Fitch and Bloomberg and some of these rating agencies. It appears that if Ghana says we are not going to the international market, then we don't have an alternative to finance our expenditures in this country. But this is not the first time Ghana has not gone on the market. You see, in 2017, Ghana didn't go on the market, and yet we met our expenditure targets and revenues. In 2022, government is looking more within to raise the financing, because the good news for Ghana was that last year, the IMF gave Ghana the SDR of 1 billion, the special drawing right. And we spent 250 million of that in last year's budget. We still have 750 million or about $700 million sitting in Ghana already. So we don't have to go out there in the market to borrow. And we have factored that. And all the external financing that we are looking at is just about $750 million for us to be able to achieve the expenditure targets for 2022. And we think that we have enough capacity within our domestic market to be able to raise enough financing to achieve the budget targets. They have their doubts, but 1 year is not far away. Just like they doubted us in 2021, we delivered. And I believe that if this is the basis of concern, for them to be rating us at the levels that they are doing, we are very, very surprised. Because an economy that is growing about 5% in COVID and meeting its revenue target cannot be said to be having a negative outlook. You get it? So, yes, but we are all entitled to disagree. And I want to assure the country that irrespective of other people's confidence in us, we have strong confidence in our ability to deliver the best for our country and manage the economic affairs of Ghana in the best of means possible. And now the targets we have set for 2022 shall be met by the grace of God. Just
now,
like we set it for 2021.
People are facing the stark reality of the unprecedented borrowing that you have been involved in, and yet you issue a statement and tell them that in spite of whatever, we do not face any imminent external imbalances. And we have these rating agencies that you have always placed a lot of hope and trust in them. Suddenly, you have issues with them. How do we reconcile that?
Samson, we are saying that we are expected them to appreciate that in those countries where they even are, they have seen that there's no singular country. Look, in the U.S., apart from the $1.9 trillion when Biden came initially, they created to shore up the economy. Recently, they have put across another $3 trillion for infrastructure. Every country is adding on to their debt. And they know that's the reality of how you rebuild out of COVID. Okay? So we are not saying, yes, we haven't borrowed. There's no country, even the West African regional average of debt was 35% before COVID. Today, we are talking about 65% of West Africa debt to GDP, regional average. So these are the difficult realities that, yes, the world has gone through some hardship, okay? And so if we have shown that in spite of those difficulties, we are slowing down on our debt, we have shown, at least from the 2021 and 2022 performance and targets, that we are reducing our debt rate, and we have shown how we are going to create jobs for young people through the U-Start and expand the economy so that we can grow at targets that help us.
And you are hoping to do that. You are hoping to do that with E-levy, and the minister did announce that himself, you, and other key members of government, you are going to, embark on a public engagement and sensitization campaign across the country to communicate clearly the proposed mechanics of the E-levy and its potential benefits to the people within the spirit of burden sharing. That must guide all of us towards our development efforts to move Ghana beyond aid. He says you intend to use the money, create jobs and grow the private sector to employ more of the youth, accelerate the digitalization agenda to bring more convenience to Ghanaians, enhance the security of our digital platform, aggressively expand our road infrastructure agenda, reduce our dependence on debt, and reduce the crowding out of the private sector to improve access to credit. When you say this and you get yourselves ready, all of you, to go out and begin to talk to people about this, is this not what you should rather be doing to the MPs, the minority members of parliament, because it is not sure what is going to happen again?
Yes, Samson, you have a good point, and that's what we've done all this vacation. We've talked to almost every stakeholder that we need to engage. As we speak, I am in Rock City with all the majority members of parliament and trying to engage further on the E-levy. I just returned from Kumasi and engaging the media and explaining to the population on the need for us all to support the E-levy and how it can bring support to the growth of our economy and its importance to the 2022 budget. So, and of course, FBOs, the faith-based organizations, minority groups in Parliament, we will continue to engage. And at the end of the day, we believe that when Parliament resumes next week, Parliament will be in a position to pass the E-levy so that as a country, we will be able to raise enough resources. And in line with this burden sharing issue, we know that telcos have agreed to also reduce their expenditures or their charges by 0.25%. So that clearly is going to help us in the...
This is intended to give you only 10% or less of what you are expected to raise. And yet, even that there are speculations that what you expect to raise, you may not get as much as you are looking forward. You are looking to about, is this 7 billion to 8 billion? And the speculation is that you may get close to half or less. And yet, this still remains such an integral part, or as it were, the pivot of your fundraising activities, revenue-raising activities.
Yes, Samson, it is true. We believe we will raise the 6.9 billion if we start with the E-levy. If by any event we are not able to raise that, I have told you that there's going to be strong commitment control, not just on revenues, but also on expenditure. And our minister the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta, has already announced a 20% cut on expenditure in the first quarter. So if we are not able to raise enough revenues, we will still stay within the budget target and we will not overrun the budget.
Okay.
But we are very confident that we will raise it. We know the work we have done and what the basis for the projections that we did. We are even confident that that estimate is very, very conservative. And granted, you know, the volumes of mobile money transactions in Ghana in 2020 was 900 billion. And it was expected to even increase into trillions by the close of 2021. And so we believe that with the kind of investment we have done in that industry or in that sector, in the mobile money sector and other digital platforms, we will believe that we'll be able to hit the target.
Okay.
And
right. Just in a minute, what will you say to those who are saying this minister is tired? He's simply not seeing his way through all of this portfolio of the Ministry of Finance. The president should simply retire him.
I'll be surprised to hear that. Those of us who are close to him and work with him, he works like I don't know which animal is the strongest. Maybe
is the result that is being talked about.
No, but his results has been splendid. Which minister has consistently hit his target since he became finance minister? Revenue targets are met, growth targets are met, expenditure targets are met. So what is the basis of the assessment that you are talking about? COVID was not his fault. This was that finance minister that grew this country by consistently 7% consistent growth in 3 years until COVID hit. And even in spite of COVID, he's growing at the targets for every year. He's hitting his target. So it says that's why I'm saying it's very exaggerated for anybody to be thinking that the economy is not heading well. And we are very confident at the innovations that he's able to bring and his discipline in maintaining how targets within the year are met. And we should continue to support him. I would tell those people to rather tell the president to continue to have confidence in the Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta and his ability to deliver the economic agenda for Ghana.
Okay, so your last comment I'll take from you is to this particular comment. Listen to it and let's get your response.
Okay.
In a sense that if you look at an investor out there, the investor understands the rating agency more than the government. Already when it comes to trust issues on data, it's a very huge one in Africa. The understanding is that sometimes we don't really churn out very good data. So the best we could have done is not to come out to say that the economy is doing well, and that maybe the report that is coming from Fitch might not necessarily be a report that reflects what is happening on the grounds here. We don't have to respond to indicate that, we are doing better, and therefore the ratings that is coming out is not, a reflection of what is happening in our economy. When you do that, it gives the signal that possibly there's a conflict in, data, and that in itself is an uncertainty, because if it is putting out this and then you are also saying that you are doing well, in the investment brings, what we call uncertainty, which in itself is a risk on its own. So the investor does not really know the exact happenings on the ground, and no investor will put his money in an environment where there is a conflicting, information coming out from that environment.
Yes, John, what do you say to Professor Lord Mensah?
I'll say two things to Professor Lord. First of all, the Bloomberg publication that came, and subsequent to the Ministry of Finance response, Bloomberg has come out to retract that the basis of the analysis, especially with respect to our debt percentages, they got it wrong. Okay, so we are not putting out wrong data. They could also get it wrong, and they are agreeing with us that they got it wrong. Secondly, throughout last week, the Ministry of Finance has been on roadshow, engaging all our investors, led by the Honorable Charles Edubuahin, and explaining to them the real picture of the Ghana situation and helping to restore their confidence that there is no cause for alarm. Yes, there may be uncertainty with respect to E-levy at the moment because of the impasse in Parliament, but that is not so grave to change what we have done, and that even should that happen, we have alternative plans, including cutting down expenditures to be able to stay within targets of the budget. And so I would tell Professor Lord to be rest assured that we have competent managers of the economy, and that we are not churning out any different data. They got it wrong based on their own publications, which we responded. We have given out the facts of how this economy is growing, and that economy emerging from COVID growing over 5% cannot be said to be a bad economy as is being projected out there. And we are engaging them in brochures to restore their confidence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. John Kumah is Deputy Finance Minister. I would end with Mr. Seth Tekpe, former Finance Minister, who is here in the studio with us. So you've heard him. They have a certain clear path that they are taking. And despite everything else, they are very sure that there will not be any external imbalances, and there will not be things that will result in what we hear will shock the economy into collapse.
I think we are being complacent, to put it in a milder way. First of all, we couldn't go to the market last year. Why were we not able to go to the market? Why did we do a zero coupon and had to give up $150 million US in exchange?
Why?
It's because the market is tough, right? It's because that's what we could get. And we had to pay over 30% simple interest to get that money.
Meaning?
Right?
What are the implications
Meaning
of that?
Meaning you needed the money, right? And remember when 2015, we did 10.2%, right? You realize the comments and things that were, passed, the worst interest rate. Yes, we needed that money to come and refinance so that we can put the sinking fund in place, right? And we spoke about market sentiments back then. So it's every Minister of Finance, that's yes.
No, see, from where I sit, I'm hearing almost the same things that when you were in charge, the MPP was saying in opposition. I'm hearing a turn. Nothing seemed to have changed. It's just the positions
a lot has changed.
of the individuals that have changed.
No, let's look at the numbers.
No, the debt burden is different. We know that. The historic debt that they have accrued, we know about that. But I'm talking about as in the rating agencies and the job they have done, how you see the NPP in opposition use that to crucify you, and how now they don't want anybody to believe them.
No, we are not using it to crush me. Remember something. You remember I have been in the studio with your good self expressing concern about some of the accounting methodologies and the rest, which the IMF revised. IMF revised our 2018-2019 deficits. The Minister for Finance is still quoting his numbers. And the markets are taking, what the IMF is saying, 7%. He said your deficit is 7%, your deficit was 7.2. They revised it in Article 4. We are quoting the same numbers. Who is the market believing? Yeah, so you can be here and say you are doing well. At least, past governments, once we, and mind you, there's background discussion. There's background discussion with the IMF. There's background discussion.
You used to tell us to be careful how we discuss these issues because it affects investor confidence. The minister is also telling us the same thing today.
Well, to the point, yes, to the extent that some of it you may not see. I did.
They never took that seriously.
Well, no, look, I don't want to comment on that, but the fact is that I did monthly briefing for the financial press in particular, anytime I made that, to explain, right? But they can, just like Fitch, even the domestic market, they have a way of interpreting what, the way they see things. But let me just comment on why I say that we are. One, I said we were not able to go to the market, right? What is our preparation? Normally we go to the market around about March, April. What's our preparation, to go to the market? That is what we want to know. Yes, he just said that Honorable Dubois is talking to the investors, and the rest. Now, E-levy is already in the budget. And the budget which the rating agencies, the fund, and everybody, is concerned about and giving us that deficit is already in the budget, right? So it's not this magical thing. And something, let me say that the basis on which, we are talking about the E-levy, right? Just briefly. We had services taxes back, when we did the VAT, right? They were limited. We don't have time. I would have quoted, the sections for you. They were limited. They were expanded even before the VAT was reintroduced again. And then all were put under VAT. The question is, what are we taxing? Are we so desperate that we are not taxing investments? That is the question. And why am I saying that? In all countries, what you tax is a fee, right? Something. As I tweeted, if I put my money under my pillow, you put your money in a bank, and especially our young friends put it in their wallet on the phone. Isn't it savings? Is it not the same money? Yeah. Right? Now, what you have to tax, yes, I choose my pillow. Thieves can come and steal.
I've listened to questions in this direction to the minister when he did the meeting and all his other supporters. It's obvious they don't answer that question
yes,
directly.
But I need to
which is to be an admission that they know that they are taxing your wallet practically. They are taxing your capital, and not your earning and so on. But they say we should burden share. No. We should try and help. We are in a situation. The minister gave an example of some other countries where they are taxing their citizens so much. And we go there, we see that it is beautiful, we like it, and yet we don't want to do the same.
Something, we have had 3 oil fields. You see, let's get a background, very well. We have had 3 oil fields. He spoke about we not going to the market in 2017. Of course, oil prices had recovered. Crude oil production had gone up at the time from about 70,000 barrels, to nearly 180. Today we are close to 200,000 barrels. He had the ESLA sinking fund was there. 200 million was used to pay off the rest of the first sovereign bond. So the conditions in 2017 were quite conducive. As I said, right? It's like when we had the first oil field, we started putting money aside for sinking fund, contingency fund, and the rest. We started turning and strengthening the domestic market and the DUFO and all that.
Okay.
Yes. So there is every, for that. So, but the point I'm making, yes, okay. If they refuse to answer it, then that is the point. Are we so desperate? Then tell us, are we so desperate that we have started taxing investments by government that is entrepreneurial? You know, that is the point that we are making.
Interesting.
Instead of the fee.
Let
me make two more points. You see, we fell into this mistake of comparing ourselves to the UK, to the US, and the rest. They are borrowing at 2%. President Biden, if he gets the act, does not have a problem. His market is big. He can go and borrow at 2%. You cannot even go and borrow at 10% as we speak. There's no basis for that comparison. They say monkeys move, by sizes. Yes.
Okay.
Right. And then my other point is that remember that let me re-emphasize. We are blaming so much on COVID, but I'm saying what the market is saying is that you got 5 billion, something multiplied by 6, 30 billion. How much is GRA bringing? GRA is bringing in what? Barely less than 60 billion. So you got half of what GRA will give you in a whole year to support COVID. So what the market is expecting that after all that money that you got, and Ghana got one of the highest, you should have been able to stabilize and not present a budget like this. So was there a problem other than COVID, as some of us have been saying? And why is it lingering? That is the question.
Okay.
Are we overspending?
Thank you.
I think that is the issue which is facing us as a nation, and we shouldn't be complacent.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Setekpe, former finance minister, the Minister of Finance says that we need to do this because they intend to use the money to create jobs and grow the private sector to employ more of our youth, accelerate digitalization agenda to bring more convenience to Ghanaians, enhance the security of digital platforms, aggressively expand our road infrastructure agenda, reduce our dependence on debt, and reduce the crowding out of the private sector to improve access to credit. Well, E-levy somehow truly appears to be the one thing to fix everything, which the government disagrees. Well, he ends by charging us on Genesis chapter 11, verse 5 and 6. Quote, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them." We take a break here. When we return, we will go into the classroom. It's trimester, not a semester program. How did government fail so abysmally to gauge this before the rush into announcing this policy? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And this program is brought to you by the candidate sponsorship of Bank of Africa, Strongest Group, and close partner MTN. Everywhere you go, Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, seeing is believing. Waylead Properties, home is where one starts. DBS Industries. We truly are your root experts. CBG, we stand with you. Fabrimental, your partner in steel. Duraplast, where Duraplast goes, water flows. And the Barstow School. Start here, go everywhere. I'll share a few of your comments with you, and then we move on to the education front. Now, this one, okay, you say that, you tweet that if the John Kuma is saying the economy is doing great and it is to do better, then why the E-levy? So far, they have not been accountable, so we are also not comfortable paying the E-levy, and hence we will deactivate our Momo accounts. Well, there's a no-calls day on the 8th of February coming up. Prempe Nanaya says that is it not ironic that John Kuma is telling us that in the midst of COVID, the GRA was able to beat their revenue target. However, they still blame our economic woes on COVID, still struggling to marry this. Koko Eje says the LI 2177 clearly gives such detail on how explosives should be carried. But like everything in this country, we like to cut corners, forgetting that shortcuts have consequences. Little Tete says a critical look into the Bogosu Apiatse explosion clearly shows there has been no education, especially for the communities at large, in dealing with explosives, and that is worrying. Well, when the driver asked them to, take cover, leave the place, they were interested in rather gathering by the explosives and taking shots. That was really, really terrible. Man Friday says, with this issue, no proper investigation will be done, so corrective action and preventive action will be outlined, and certainly it may happen again and the poor will die. Their homes will be ripped off and no proper compensation will be paid. Baba Chairman says, Newsfile, we simply don't just learn as a country. And once again, we have activated our firefighting approach. The issue of people always wanting to take pictures of accident scenes and be the first to break the news must be looked at again. Nana Pihene says, truth be told, a good chunk of our public institutions mandated by law to employ proper regulations, checks and balances, and monitoring evaluations refuse to work, culminating in sheer systematic failures, wasting lives in the process. And finally, Dom Rich says, looks like we have been using these commissions to whitewash structural and procedural lapses in how we enforce the law. The question is, what oversight roles has the ministry and its agencies been performing to ensure that individuals and companies comply with the law? Thank you for your messages. Now, let's get to meet our next set of guests as we go into the classroom to check why the new semester system that we were told had come to stay has suddenly been abandoned. So, I've got this very interesting message I really wanted to share because it's from a victim of the situation in Bogosu, and it's telling us about circumstances that they still think that attention ought to be given so that some of them are not left unattended. I'll look for it and bring it back to you. Now, my guest in the studio, Michael Insoa, is chairman of the GES Council. Also here is Kofi Asare, Executive Director, Africa Education Watch. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Reverend Isaac Owusu is President of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. Thank you also for joining us by Zoom. All right, so let's begin right here. By the decision that we now know that we are reverting to the semester system, it is very clear, isn't it, Chairman of the Ghana Education Service Council, that this was not clearly thought through?
Thank you very much. I think your question is that, this thing was just put out for the consumption of the public, but that is not the case. Of course, every year we have to bring out the calendar for the year. And a lot of things are taken into consideration. We don't even repeat the previous years because of, sometimes you need to look at when certain holidays, and then the number of weeks that we will require in order to, go through everything that we need to do. So all these things went through, and in fact, a committee, the ministerial committee on timetable, were put together, and then in the end we came out with this.
So is this committee a standing committee, or it was this time that there was a need for a ministerial committee for timetable?
Every year, the units for basic schools, there's a unit for basic schools at the GES.
Right.
So that unit is in charge of bringing out the suggested timetable or calendar for the year, for the academic year.
Obviously, it will be such an indictment to be thinking that there has to be a ministerial committee that has to bring out a calendar every year, because...
No, because people heard about, going, we've already put the secondary level on this semester.
Right.
So people were asking questions whether it will not be feasible to put all the structures on the semester. So the ministry came in to say, okay, let us expand the team that prepares the calendar for the year. So the ministry, in its own wisdom, let's involve the parents and the public and so on. So yeah, we did that, and in the end we came out with, there was the agreement on the semester proposal.
Agreement by the committee? The committee level.
The committee came up. Of course, we were looking at trimester and semester, and the committee recommended the semester.
So the committee didn't think through this?
So it is not something that, it has been the function of the basic unit of the, to always come out with a calendar and a timetable.
Well, what do you say to the mass opposition? Clearly, there were no consultations, even though there had been arguments that there were consultations and all of that.
Well, this time, I think this issue of consultation came up when we started putting the secondary level on the semester program. Now, when you hear semester in Ghana, it's the university sort of calendar that we are talking about.
It's the only place we are used to semester.
Yeah. But I think 2018 and 19, the ministry decided that if children would write the WASI and stay at home for some time before they can enroll on the university courses, why don't they go on semester so that when they dovetail into the university admissions period, so that they don't have to wait for some period before they can enroll. And that's how come the secondary level was put on. So when this whole issue came, and people thought that maybe because we have changed the curriculum, we are also going to put the basic level onto the semester level. So that's how the argument started.
Okay. Reverend Bogosu, President of NAT, you were so opposed to this, so eventually your arguments won. Why is the semester policy so bad, such that you had to kick against it in the manner that you did?
Well,
Okay, I heard you as you commenced, but it's gone off. We'll try and re-establish contact with him. Yes, but Kofi Asare, Executive Director, Africa Education Watch. Okay, Reverend Isaac Bogosu, you are on. Let's hear you. Unfortunately, I can't hear him. Yes, go ahead. I can hear you now. You need to unmute your mic. Is that a problem? Okay. We have you on the phone. Can I hear you, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you here, Samson.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Let me say a very good morning to you and your cherished viewers and listeners across the globe this morning. And also a very good morning to my council chairman, Mr. Shua, and the other colleague at studio. And let me say that once I've come to this big platform, council permit me to acknowledge my teachers. You know, we just had our National Delegate Conference 3 weeks ago, and I was elected to be the national president for the Great Association NAT. Now,
congratulations.
Samson,
yes.
You know that at the basic level, the semester system has never been part of our structure. It was during the pre-secondary school implementation that, due to the challenge the government was facing, then the GES adopted the double track system, which came together with the semester system because of the challenge of infrastructure. Then in 2020-2021, due to the outbreak of COVID-19, and schools were closed down, and we needed to prepare our JHS students for the BC and subsequently for their promotional exams, those in JHS 1 and JHS 2. So the idea from the GES management was that because the children and the teachers have sat for long, it was the semester system at the JHS level to enable the teachers and the students to at least recover the lost period. And so we agreed and we implemented the semester system at the JHS. But the idea was that the semester at the JHS level was never going to be a permanent system that we are going to operate. Now, though we've not been able to eradicate the COVID-19 totally from the country, but at least if you compare today to the year 2021, at least today is far better than last year. And so we were of the view that once, due to a challenge, we were able to absorb the JHS semester system, and things are at least being normalized. We should rather ask the JHS to come back to their normal semester system, not to include KG pupils and the primary pupils together with the JHS. So that is why we felt that if you look at the longevity of how the children, especially the kindergarten children and the primary, are going to be in school for long, psychologically, the effect it will have on the children, it will be unbearable for us as teachers and as a nation. So that has been our stand. And in any case, we thank the Ministry of Education and the GES management for at least listening to our call by reversing the semester back to the semester system.
Hold on there. So, Kofi, the point is that they would have thought about this carefully, unlike the suggestion out there that they didn't think through it and all of this. They would have carefully examined the situation, and when it came forward, they had actually come to say this had come to stay, and everybody should brace themselves to, be part of it rather than opposing it. What do you think happened?
I think that what happens was what normally happens in hurriedly rushed policies. the issue we are discussing is not just a calendar issue. It's not just a timetable issue. It is a policy issue. It is an issue of a policy which is a structural policy. You know, there are two. We normally categorize policies into two at Edgeworth. We have the structural policies, the policies that affect the structure of the educational system, and then we have the functional policies, policies that affect the functional arrangement within the system. So if you are discussing textbook policy, teacher deployment policy, these are functional policies. But structural issues are normally foundational. Policies relating to the duration of, let's say, basic education, secondary education. These are structural policies, okay, that don't just change. Because this trimester system has been with us prior to independence. Okay, so it is not just your policy that you will just change, but then changing it will take something more than just, you know, having an engagement with stakeholders. So I think that what happened was the normal situation where the politicals hatch an idea, they want to implement it, and then they push it through, you know. And I say that something, it is an opportunity for institutional introspection and learning on how policies are made in the education sector. That's how I see it. Because, you see, we are a 30-year-old democracy, but we haven't sufficiently institutionalized democratic decision-making, or we haven't democratized policy-making sufficiently enough, especially within the social sectors of our economy. So when you have a situation where a major policy of this nature is seen as a calendar, then we have a problem. When you have a situation where a major policy like this is developed, enacted, and actually announced without the buy-in, I'm not talking about information, because at the Education Ministry, anytime you hear consultation, it's likely it is information, okay? So I am talking about buy-in, consensus, significant consensus. Policies like this, there must be significant consensus, not 100%, but significant consensus with two people. One, the implementers, the teachers. They are the ones who are going to implement the policy. You are going to be in Accra here. And then two, the beneficiaries. Who are you changing the system to benefit? The children, their parents. Are they aware? No. So, and not just are they aware, are they involved? Well, they are only informed, and we call it engagement. No. So it is an opportunity for institutional introspection about the policy making, policy review processes within the education sector. And an opportunity for us to once again draw it's not a thin line, draw the huge dichotomy between information as construed to mean consultation and consensus.
The statement issued by the ministry said that it had received representation from a section of the public and key educational stakeholders to reinstate the trimester system. What I want to understand is this for just this year, or this is back for good?
Well, I don't think that the discussion on this semester system will even emerge again, because it has no business emerging. As I mentioned, if you are enacting new policies, you enact new policies on the basis of deficits in an existing policy, or the existence of a problem which is not sufficiently tackled by an existing policy, or if there are deficits and they are proven unsurmountable, that's why you bring in new policies. But the basis for which this semester thing was introduced was not about any flaw in the trimester tradition. So I think that, as we understood it to mean, when the semester system was brought in, it was brought in to manage the double track system. It was easier managing 6 tracks, Form 1, Form 2, Form 3, 2 tracks to 6 tracks within the semester system than doing it within the trimester system. And we all agreed that the communication was that when it ends and we revert to single track, the semester system will go. It was an ad hoc solution to an emergency. The double track itself is an emergency arising out of Christian High School. So I think that it is gone.
Reverend Bogosu, is that your understanding? Because the paragraph before the very final one says that after consultation on the issue, the Honorable Minister for Education has directed that the calendar for kindergarten to junior high school for the current academic year should revert to the trimester system.
Yes, Samson, we are talking about the current academic year, and we do not know the future academic year. So once we had issue with the current academic year, which GES wanted the teachers and the children to do semester system, and the ministry has come out to tell the general public that we should revert back to our semester system. That is what we'll be practicing all this while. Your issue is not with the policy, it's only with this academic year, implementing it this academic year. Captain, I don't think at the end of this academic year, anybody is going to bring back the semester system once again. You see, my council chairman is right there at your studio. He has been a teacher for a very long time. And of course, he was even the principal of a college of education. And one thing that we were taught at college was that we should never adopt lecture method in teaching at the basic level, especially at the lower primary and the kindergarten. So the teachers who pride their work at the basic level do not adopt lecture method. All our teaching methods are a demonstration, activity-based method. And so the teacher standing before the children or the pupils is supposed to demonstrate for the children to follow same. And the recent curriculum, the ministry together with GES brought, the standard-based curriculum, the teacher is now a facilitator. And what it means is that you, the facilitator, you only guide the children to take up from you. So we are not doing lecture method that will need a semester system to operate under the KG and the primary level, as well as the GHS level. So once it has been reversed back to the trimester system, what we are looking forward is that GES will quickly come out with another timetable to suit the trimester system we used to operate with, so that we can have peace of mind to teach our children at the end of the day. Okay, so for now the timetable is that the first term begins the 18th of January and ends on the 14th of April. That will be 12 weeks, and then the 15th of April to the 9th of May will be for vacation. Then the second term and the third terms will also continue until sometime in December. That's the 22nd of December. Yes, Samson, this is the academic calendar. That's right. So we are what I'm referring is the daily activity. Okay. Hours of work a day. How many hours are the teachers going to spend in a day? So that is the work of team. But Mr. Nsoa, how did we come to this delay that school is starting and all of this is not in place? What's going on?
No, it's because of this whole issue about whether we are going semester or we're going trimester. And the debate was such that we needed to consult a lot of people. Let me also say that, you don't just put academic calendar just by looking at what you want to do. So many things are taken into consideration, including even the welfare of the teachers. And in this particular case, after many meetings, we realized that we need to give the teaching fraternity the opportunity, especially the current teachers. The program is that every teacher should have an enhanced certificate, meaning those who did the A4 year, A3 year, and so on and so forth. They need to upgrade their qualifications. And in doing that, they enroll on sandwich courses with the universities. We realize that when the universities start their program for the sandwich courses, teachers leave the classroom to attend, to go for their sandwich courses. In that case, we have many empty classrooms. And we say, no, this is not good. And we are not going to allow that. So with the unions, we say, let us find a specific block of time where the teachers are free or they have vacated for the year, and therefore they can go to, then there will be no problem. But if we continue in this way, many teachers were going to suffer, because when you leave the classroom, with a new system where teachers' absences are tracked definitely the number of days that you are absent from the classroom, you will not receive your pay. So we have agreed on all this, and that was incorporated in the timetable. Now, the semester where people were making noise that, 20 weeks is too much.
You mean you agreed with the teachers?
Yes. Yes, they cannot deny. Nobody can deny that. That let us prepare.
Teachers, they are represented by NAT.
Exactly.
That's
No, it's not only NAT. Don't worry.
The biggest representation
all
of
the three unions were present. Let us have a timetable that will allow teachers who want to upgrade themselves to also enroll on distance courses. So fantastic. Nobody is going to argue.
So why did they turn against it?
No, but okay, let me finish. So when we made the proposal, we came out with a proposal of 20 weeks. But the 20 weeks, if you see the blocks, you see that after 10 weeks, there's a break for 10 days for the children to go and rest and come back for another 10 days. That is the block for the 20 weeks.
I see.
So there was, because at the end of, when we finish their academic calendar, then there will be about 10 weeks, so-called holidays, where those who have enrolled on distance education courses or will be able to attend their 8 weeks sandwich courses, attend their 8 weeks sandwich courses, so that there will be no problem.
I see. Wait, let me get Reverend Osu, Isaac Osu about this. So you guys met, you agreed on this, and then you made a U-turn and deceived the public that you had not been consulted on this issue?
Samson, thank you very much once again. And let me say that not as a union, at the time the invitation came to us was the time we were having our national delegate conference. And we admitted that the call came to our general secretary. But as at that time, my council chairman will admit that he was even at our conference. So we couldn't honor the invitation. But the other unions were there. The other unions were told honor the invitation. But not who is holding the collective bargaining certificate was unable to attend. Because that was our higher decision-making body conference that we were having, of which every member was busy doing one or two things. So NAT was not present at that particular meeting.
I see. Kofi, were you aware of this?
No, sorry, let me just... No, I'm surprised you say NAT was not there. At what point that we came to this agreement that we should make sure we have a block of holidays where teachers can enroll?
He's the president. He says he wasn't there. They were not there.
Oh.
We should take his word for it.
Okay, no, I'm not going to argue with you, but you see, these are things that informed the final draft of the calendar. That, yes, it's semester, 20 weeks, but it's not, children are not going to sit in the classroom for 20 weeks. They will do 10 weeks, go for a short break,
10 days,
and then come back and do the other 10 weeks.
And the bigger interest it serves is for teachers who need to upgrade themselves.
And parents were also happy because of this kind of thing.
Really?
But for anybody to say they were not part.
Okay.
So now that this is happening, there will be no time for anybody to go for 8 weeks distance education course while the calendar is in place.
Sounds like punishment.
Oh, it's not punishment. We brought this thing so that it will serve the interests of everybody.
But they were doing it anyway, so they will continue.
Well, now you can't do it because attendance is closely monitored. So, well, you need to have another time to do it. Maybe if it's the evening classes, then there's no problem.
All right. But when they do that, it serves the interest of the education service, the ministry, and all of us collectively when they improve themselves. Yes, Kofi, finally, what will you say? And I was asking if you are aware about these circumstances.
I am aware there was a meeting. There was one meeting, only one meeting. And then the invitation was sent through, they give them hours notice on that same day. And then I'm saying that's what I'm aware of. Okay. And then the teacher unions were then doing their, NAT was in Kumasi also, and then so they had to represent them. But that meeting was to inform them about what had been done. That was the only meeting I am told that they attended. And a meeting is obviously to receive information, because consultation that builds consensus is not done in one meeting. More so when that committee was set up long ago. It wasn't set up in 1 week.
Okay.
But let me quickly say that the argument about the semester system being a cure to teacher absenteeism, as espoused by the deputy DG, and then being repeated by the
chairman of the council,
chair, needs to be, put within the right perspective. The last time there was a massive upgrading of teachers, was between 2004, 2005, 2006, when the UTTDB on training diploma in basic education program was rolled out to give teachers an opportunity to upgrade to become diplomats. Since then, any time there is an effort or a policy to upgrade teachers massively, tertiary institutions have always adjusted their timetable to fit within the vacation. So the impression shouldn't be created that there is a fixed rule that if you don't go on vacation this year, you can't go and upgrade. No. Tertiary institutions are making most of their financing now from the IGF.
Yeah, the continuing education policy or system
it's a major source of
flexible.
IGF. Exactly. Right. It's a major source of IGF to the tertiary institutions. If you look at the budgets, the allocation of IGF, the contribution of IGF to tertiary education financing is now huge. So they will always adjust to fit within the vacation. So the impression should be created that it is actually cast in stone that if you don't vacate at this time within the semester, you can't go. Secondly, what did the semester schedule say? It said that students are going to be in school, teachers are going to be in school from January to June. As we speak, the Sunway timetable for University of Cape Coast is May, June. University of Cape Coast.
All right.
It's May, June this year. But in the semester timetable, May, June was still school session.
That's exactly.
So how would that have happened?
No, that is something that people don't know.
All right.
We have agreed with the universities to have a timetable. In fact, yesterday when we had a meeting with them, he's going to reiterate this point that any university that has a timetable that sort of runs into.
Okay. Well, unfortunately,
they will have to have timetable.
That is where we have come to.
In line with.
Yeah, the same way they were realigned to the.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. The chairman of the GES Council, Michael Insoa, Kofi Asare is Executive Director, Africa Education Watch, and Reverend Isaac Owusu is President of NAT. Thank you all so very much. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. So the semester system is not going to work. It is the trimester system that has been reverted to by the Education Ministry and the GES. Thank you very much. Okay.
On the indignation and disappointment of the NDC minority by the Ghana Armed Forces and by extension the executive arm of government to withdraw the providing for the safety and security of Right Honorable Speaker Alban Bakbin. The action is not only cruel and discriminatory, but does not augur well for the unity of the state and for the stability of the republic. I'm utterly disappointed in the Ghana Armed Forces, who ought to live above reproach, and utterly disappointed in the Minister for Defense and the Executive President for sanctioning such an action. For what gain? For what political gain? It's not healthy for our democracy, and not when you are seeking to build a consensus. You engage in this show of brute force. It's ugly for our democracy. The developments are not good at all. And you expect that tomorrow you come saying that you want to build consensus? Consensus with whom? What is even more worrying is the fact that ministers of state have provided military guards and supported by soldiers, chief executive officers, even chairpersons of commission have 4, 5, 6, 7 military personnel around them. And we cannot have this for the third most important person of our republic, the Speaker of Parliament. That's cruel, that's inhumane, and that's discriminatory. We would not countenance these discriminatory actions of the executive intended to gag or intended to weaken the political minority, to weaken the political opposition, to serve what gains. The Ghana Armed Forces is a state institution, and one expects that they would know that they owe the high public officer, Right Honorable Speaker Alban Bagbin, a duty of care and a standard of care in respect of his safety and security. He is simply not ordinary. And same courtesies, privileges, and facilities that are extended to the president, the vice president, same ought to be installed for the protection of the speaker. I'm utterly disappointed.
So that's the minority leader in Parliament, Haruna Idrisu. I'm joined by the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Kwamina Afenyomaking, and also Colonel Festus Abuaji, author and consultant. Let me begin with Colonel Festus Abuaji. Do you agree with the position by the minority that this is intended to gag? They don't want to take the explanations that have been given by the states in this regard. And they say they are not taking this. What can they do? Please unmute your mic.
First of all, thanks for having me.
Right.
And please permit me not to answer your question in the yes or no manner. My view for all time has been that we have found it difficult, probably deliberately, as a nation, to make a clean break from our military era dispensation and our democratic era. So we have imported and carried on with certain practices that have no place in the democratic environment. And one of them is this issue that we are now confronted with. Now, from my checks, I stand to be corrected, but a former Right Honorable Deputy Speaker, Dua Jaho, has indicated that this is the first time that since 1992, if you like 1993, that a speaker has been accorded military protection. And I think effectively 2018 or 2020 or thereabout. There hasn't been any precedent. No speaker in the Fourth Republic has been accorded military protection.
Professor Michael Quay also says same.
That's the first point we need to note. Mm-hmm. But the reason why the speakers may not have been accorded military protection is that constitutionally, it is not the role of the military to become watchmen and watchwomen. Their function is to defend the state against external aggression and also to take care of internal security. So in the domain of internal security, if there are exigencies that expose some office public holders to danger or risk, then by executive order, the president or commander-in-chief can direct the armed forces to provide protection to certain individuals. We realize from the documents that are circulating on social media that It was the Office of Parliament or the Marshal or whoever in Parliament, Parliamentary Service or some entity like that, that wrote to the Ghana Armed Forces directly asking that the Speaker must be provided military protection, and indeed went ahead and specified the personnel that should be provided. Now, that is wrong. You see, it is absolutely wrong. It puts the military in a very awkward position as we're experiencing now. The third point is that fine, be it as it may, if the military is withdrawing the Speaker's protection for whatever reason, we know empirically that there are individuals in this country, and I think the minority caucus leader referred to that, who have military protection without any basis whatsoever. And that is where the selectivity comes in, the discriminatory ways of, using public resources or state resources. So if the military cannot provide protection to the third in the hierarchy of power in this country, there is nobody else.
Yeah, but they have not said. But they have not said so. They have not said so. What they have said is a question of procedural lapse, and that's what they needed to cure. That's what they've told us.
So we have heard in the media, in the wider public discourse, that a decision made by a predecessor, i.e. in this case the CDS at the time that the approval was made, that the successor cannot and should not, in good faith, change that decision. But we need to broaden the debate beyond the specificities of this speaker. And that's the point I'm trying to raise. That fundamentally...
No, but when the debate is raised about other people who have military protection, the military has not come forward to say that there was any procedural problem with how those officers were sent to them.
There is a procedural issue. I have suggested that the only instance interpreting the Constitution that certain individuals should be accorded military protection is in situations of internal security. There has not been any internal security. And even if there was internal security at the time of the elections, are we still in that state of internal security? Then beyond that, publicly, in accordance with the principles of rule of law, the state should be told that in view of certain circumstances prevailing in the state, certain individuals are being accorded military protection. To the best of my knowledge, and in discussions with a number of retired and serving officers, there hasn't been any such declaration. And that is the point I made, that we are being ad hoc, we are being selective, we are being discriminatory. So in a sense, the minority caucus leader is right, by making those arguments.
Okay, hold on for me. Let me see. Do I have Mr. Afeyamarking on the line? Oh, did I lose him? Okay, I think I just lost Mr. Afeyamarking. But some insider information we are getting, it does appear that clearly this ought not be out there in the public because it's a security issue. Unfortunately, it's already out there. It does appear that the process of approval for those 4 officers, and remember, one of them was already stationed in Parliament, was attached to Parliament. For their approval, like you mentioned, the Speaker handpicked them. That's number one. Yeah. It's wrong that you say. And then number 2, that the process of approval appears not to have been completed or consummated, and yet they were sent there. So that is the question of the procedural problem for which they were seeking to withdraw them. And we understand also that if you are giving a military support in this circumstance, the military ought not take the front role. It does appear in Babing's case, they were the more visible officers in his security attachment. Do you agree?
Well, let me explain that. If the military, or when the military assigned those personnel, the military would have prescribed the tasks that they were to play in providing security to the speaker. But we should not run away from the fact, and that's the point I'm trying to make, that in a democratic era, the military must not be doing this work. It must be the police. You see it. And the police has got capacity, well-trained resources to do the same thing that the military is doing. Let me also put it this way. It is not appropriate, or is it appropriate, that a member of an arm of government can write to the Ghana Armed Forces asking for certain facilities? So the vice president, for instance, especially because he's the chairperson of the council, Armed Forces Council, takes his pen and writes to the Ghana Armed Forces to accord him specifically certain privileges. It's not appropriate.
How would you advise this issue be resolved? Now,
the issue will be resolved if we interpreted and adhere to the principles of constitutional democratic governance, which is that the military must not be doing certain things, including protecting certain individuals, except and unless in states of emergency. That is the bottom line. If we don't do that, and we sit in our houses and say there is a certain convention that we have borrowed from the revolutionary era that all of us condemn, and therefore use that as a convention, which we've heard in the media, people say by practice. What practice? There's nothing like that. We did it because we were ruling the country. But since 1992, I'm using the military word, we should have made a clean break from those aberrant, military practices, and then ushered in ourselves into a new democratic dispensation.
But you are suggesting beyond the state of a certain state of emergency, the military, there will not be the need for military officers to be attached to an individual public officer when a certain situation demands so?
That situation must be declared in the context of that situation. And I'm saying that in internal security, let's say the current conflict in Boku area, for instance, if a minister is going there, then the minister can write to the Ghana Armed Forces, sorry, not the Ghana Armed Forces, to the Ministry of Defense, asking for military protection. And indeed, he might not need to be given that specific protection, because if the military is already deployed, they could accord that protection facility.
Okay.
The challenge you are having, Samson, is that we are not practicing or adhering to the principles of the Constitution, although we talk about it broadly.
All right. Okay. Thank you so very much. Colonel Festus Abuaje is author and consultant. He has experience in this area and was sharing his views with us on the withdrawal of the military personnel that were attached to the speaker and expressing his views about the claims by the minority that this is intended to gag them somewhat. All right. Thank you very much for keeping your dials here on Newsfile. It's brought to you by Bank of Africa, MTN, Ashesi University, Robert & Sons, Waylead Properties, DBS Industries, CBG, Fabrimental, Duraplast, and the Barstow School. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini. Hope to see you next week for another edition of the show. Good afternoon.